Yesterday, I had an older lady come into the bank doing just regular stuff. I think she was getting a brand new debit card for her account. And in goes my conversation and my whole invitation to our credit cards, the kinds that we offer and what makes ours different. She said, "Yeah, let's do an application." I did the application, and throughout so she was all for it, right? She was totally locked in, listening to me tell her about why a credit card with us would be a great idea. And it all made sense to her up until the point that I started asking her questions, credit worthiness questions like, how much do you make? What is your mortgage payment? How long have you lived at your home? How do you make money? Things like that, right? What's your social? And all these questions I noticed at other times, not just with her, that asking these questions can tend to make someone feel a little bit uncomfortable if they don't know, or if they're not familiar, or if they don't remember, which I think was the case for her because she had plenty of credit cards in her past and she was like 80 years old. But she seemed to be uncomfortable with these types of questions that are very normal for doing loan applications, for doing credit card applications. And I noticed it, but I still went ahead. I was going through and I was asking her all the questions because I had already gained the yes from her. Therefore, there was no reason for me to bring up the possibility of us just not going through with it. In my mind, she's already said yes. I think this is good for her. She agrees that it is. Let's just keep going. Now, towards the end, I did notice that in separate instances, she seemed a little bit averse to continuing the application. She seemed to have a little bit of a application remorse from doing the application. And this is what I wanted to talk about, is that when I noticed that, and I got maybe a little bit of pushback, I assured her of why we were doing the thing in the first place. I assured her that whether she uses it or not, kind of relieving that sort of tension and that pressure of having to use a credit card and having to be in debt, removing that tension and reminding her that this was just providing her with an avenue through which she'd be able to do what she wants to do, through which she'd be able to get her project done and do it in the most cost effective way, and to be able to move a balance over to this card and pay it off in record time because she wouldn't have the encroaching pressure of interest hanging over her head. So reminding her of that, I noticed actually allowed her to relax a little bit. And at the very least, you're reminding someone that they're not giving something for nothing, that we're in this together, and this is something that is designed to improve their life. And so she ended up calling me today. I actually called her first to tell her hey, and she hadn't mentioned this to me before, by the way, that her credit is frozen. She froze her credit to where if you do an application, or you can't do an actual inquiry. She can't get her credit looked at. So I called her. I told her, hey, it actually ended up being what we thought was going to happen. With your credit scores being frozen, we couldn't pull your credit. Therefore, the application is just waiting for you to unfreeze your records. Is that something you wanted to follow through with? And she let me know, no, it's not. I actually plan on just using my own money to do it. So there's a lot of kind of moving parts to that whole scenario. But what I want to really drive home is the fact that you don't have to feel guilty or ashamed for following through on a decision that you guys made together. You don't have to feel bad for being in the process of doing something that you've already gotten the convicted yes for. What you can do is, if you do notice a little bit of unease, you can call it out in a tactful way by just reminding them of why it is that you're asking these questions, what they have to look forward to once this is done, and why it just all makes sense. 9 times out of 10, that's enough. Sometimes there's a little bit more behind it, which you'll probably need to uncover, but don't be so quick to just exit out of an application or to just give up on a customer because you see a little bit of doubt in their eyes. I'll leave it at that. I hope that made sense. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Thanks for listening, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.